today's Giraffe Talk, we're going to go over the Epstein files, talk about the situation in Minnesota, what the president is doing, foreign affairs, and most of all, the actions of a couple billionaire tech bros, in particular, Palantir and Peter Thiel.
The topics are in the news.
Breaking news.
The victim remains in critical condition.
Expert sources indicate
The reports still remain unconfirmed.
More vaccines are being made optional. Senator Ilhan Omar has been attacked. She had an unidentified liquid sprayed in her face, which was later identified as vinegar. But with all the acid attacks you hear in the news, I can see why people are kind of on guard and why she may be frightened. The FCC said they're going to start targeting late night show hosts. And this includes people like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel. They're not allowed to have a political candidate as a guest on their show. And there is a Danish petition to buy California from the United States. Danish MEP Anders Vestesen has asked President Trump to please fuck off. Still, Trump is enacting tariffs against 8 nations that are against the United States invading Greenland. So it looks like they got a framework behind the deal with Greenland and the United States, and it's basically what we've already had since the 1950s. We're allowed to build military bases there. Russia's not allowed to drill for natural resources. Part of this might be with the war games between Finland and the United States, when a bunch of Arctic trained United States soldiers got their fucking asses handed to them by the Finnish troops. This is around the time that 1,600 Arctic trained United States troops were prepping to invade Greenland. Now, there's been a lot of international changes because of this whole debacle. At this point, NATO said they're no longer sharing top secret information with the United States. The Pentagon says they no longer see China as our top threat. Instead, it's the prior administration's failure to try to take over Panama and Greenland. Trump's also withdrawing Canada's invitation to the Board of Peace, and the United States has left the World Health Organization. Furthermore, Iran has closed its airspace in anticipation for an American attack. Some more positive news, a bunch of prisoners from Nicaragua have been released, and more may be on the way. Also, the House has blocked the efforts to limit Trump's war powers in Venezuela. The European Union and India have constructed a free trade agreement. Now, does this have anything to do with the United States and their tariff strategy? Have other nations deemed the United States to be an unreliable trade partner? Yeah, probably. Now let's look a little bit on the Epstein file. The Department of Justice has stated that they're not going to release the Epstein files. They say that no punishment has been specified for not releasing the Epstein files, so of course they're not going to fucking do it. The DOJ has also tried to prematurely block Jack Smith's report on Trump and his connection to Epstein. Now, William Riley, a decorated Iraqi war vet, has also supported Jack Smith's claims against President Trump, saying that the president was a major Epstein client. And all of this resulted in a Ford employee referring to Donald Trump as the pedophile protector, which has resulted in him being suspended. Related news, the Clintons have refused the court subpoena to testify regarding the Epstein file. Now let's look at what Trump's been doing. His administration has met with the Canadian Alberta Separatist Organization. There are reports that he's building a secret anti-nuke bunker in Washington, D.C. I guess it's not that secret now, huh? He also got booed at the Commanders game, and he's also stated that coal is coming back, and we're going to remove all energy regulation. Now, the Washington Post reporter Natanson has had her house raided by the FBI. Now, why would they do that? Well, recently, she has interviewed a bunch of Trump administration employees who were dissatisfied with the way the government was going. Now let's see if we can find out what the fuck's going on in Minnesota with ICE. Now, ICE has detained 3 members from the Sioux tribe, and they said they're going to hold them hostage until the Sioux tribe can come to some kind of agreement within an immigration policy. After the shooting of Renee Good, Alex Purity has been shot as well. He was helping an old lady to get out of the way. ICE agents wrestled him to the ground, found a holstered weapon, removed it, and then shot him to death 6 times in the back. Now, there is a video going around showing him kicking the taillight of an SUV, but some of the aspects of it kind of look AI to me. Like the ICE agents galloping like doing a Monty Python sketch. The weird movement of the kick, the fact that he's wearing the same clothes, it kind of seems AI. Maybe it's real. Even if it is, that may indicate that this was a premeditated murder by ICE. Now, Kash Patel said if you come to a protest with a firearm, you're by definition not peaceful and you are a domestic terrorist. Donald Trump says you can't be carrying around a gun. He doesn't like it. Also, ICE ran a car off the road with 2 teenagers inside. Although they shown their passports, they were both detained. This is after ICE tear gassed the school. ICE is continuing to bust into houses without a warrant. Protesters busted inside of a church. ICE went to a restaurant and arrested the employees. Now, hotels and restaurants are refusing to service ICE members. J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller said that they're federally immune to any persecution. The ICE agents have put up flyers offering free food to needy families. Minnesota schools have warned not to go to these events. That's probably just a ruse to bust more immigrants. The governor Walz is saying to pull these violent, untrained officers out of his state that is causing chaos. Pam Bondi said, yeah, we will, but you gotta give us your voter record. And Walz has retorted by, hey, how about you start working on those 2 million Epstein files you're supposed to be releasing a month ago. Now, Trump has suggested all of this chaos may result in him enacting the Insurrection Act and canceling the midterm elections, that he probably should do it, but people will bitch too much. Meta has blocked ICE list, and TikTok has blocked any mentions of Epstein and Donald Trump. Anything that's anti-Trump, anything that's anti-ICE. Now, judges claim that ICE has violated more court orders in the month of January than most organizations do in their entire existence. Now, Border Patrol Chief Bombino has said if you call ICE Gestapo, there's going to be consequences. I mean, I guess it makes sense. They're acting more like brown shirts, right? Now, he has been recently transferred from Minnesota back to California. Now, there is an update with Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent that killed Elizabeth Good. He has been released from the hospital after 9 hours. 9 hours to fix up some internal bleeding? Sounds more like a bruise if you ask me. And he might have got that bruise from tackling some dude earlier. All this has resulted in calls for Kristi Noem to resign from her position. And she fired back at her detractors, saying that all she ever fucking did, the only fucking thing she ever did, was follow the commands of Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. Tesla has announced that lane keeping and autopilot are now going to be a $99 per month subscription fee. Jeff Bezos said he plans to end the era of personal computers, and we're going to rent cloud computing power instead. Now, these tech bros brings me to my main subject of today's Giraffe Talk. Palantir. What does it do? How does it function? What agencies use it? What nations use it? And what controversies and conspiracies surround this corporation? So the last Giraffe Talk, we went kind of hard on Stephen Miller, a Jewish American. I compared him to Goebbels. I had the Israeli American flag turn into the Nazi flag behind him. So to balance the skills, we're going to talk about Palantir, headed by German American Peter Thiel. What is Palantir? What products do they sell? How does it affect us? What are some of the controversies surrounding it? We're going to cover all of these topics in today's Giraffe Talk. Palantir is the company that develops software that uses data integration and analytic platforms that enable corporations, militaries, and governments on a local, state, and federal level to organize and combine large data sets. Its headquarters is in Denver, Colorado, but they have many other offices. They have the Shire in Palo Alto, California. They have Rivendell in McLean, Virginia, and Menace Tariff in Washington, D.C. They call themselves a mission-oriented company, and their goal is to reduce terrorism while preserving civil liberties. Boy, these guys are a bunch of fucking nerds. I hope most of their products aren't based around classical mythology and Tolkien and some comic book bullshit. You're watching Giraffe TV.
Palantir Technologies main products.
They have a large variety of different products. Most famous is Palantir Gotham. These guys are fucking nerds, man. It's mostly utilized by intelligence and defense organizations. It gives alerts, predictions, and geospatial analysis. It can help with the concept of predictive policing. So think of it kind of like Minority Report, but with less Tom Cruise and psychic ability. Then there's Palantir Metropolis. Once again with the nerd shit. It's a software utilizing data integration, information management, quantitative analytics. It helps find trends, patterns, relationships, and anomalies. Then there's Palantir Apollo. Alright, classical mythology, a little bit more respectable. It deals with continuous integration and continuous delivery. Just think about it as software updates. Then there's Palantir Foundry, finally a non-nerdy name, and it connects data silos. It really came into prominence during the COVID quarantine. Then there's Titan. I guess we're back to classical mythology. It stands for Tactical Intelligence Targeting Access Nodes. It's usually utilized by the military to make tactical decisions, get targeting data, and make long-range strikes. They also have Meta Constellation, and it is a satellite network. It helps deploy the usage of AI models, and it gives information on different locations. SkyKit is a portable toolbox that's for intelligence in adverse conditions. It comes with battery packs, a laptop, and a quadcopter. Palantir also has ELITE, stands for Enhanced Leads Identification and Targeting for Enforcement, and is predominantly used by ICE. It has geospatial capabilities and gives up potential targets information. And then there's AIP, Artificial Intelligence Platform. It deploys operations and receives responses, kind of like a chatbot. They say it requires human oversight. Boundary connects databases to support counterterrorism analysis, intelligence operations, law enforcement, and enterprise analytics. This is Giraffe Productions.
The history of Palantir Technologies.
Palantir's history is covered in mystery. Do you know in 2003, Peter Thiel helped bankroll the operation? It was headed by Nathan Giddings, a PayPal employee, and he's assisted by Stephen Cohen and Joe Lonsdale. Thiel would hire Alex Karp to be the CEO, and they kept founder control for this entire time. At first, it was used for PayPal fraud protection. The DoD and the FBI were really intrigued by the application, and the name spread by word of mouth through the intelligence community. However, Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia Capital would not fund the company. They thought it was gonna flop. So they think that to compete with China, we need to have less ethics than China. And I feel like my whole life I've been told we gotta compete against China, but China pretty much has slave labor. If we had to lower our quality of life to that standard just to compete against China, maybe it's just not that good of a goal to have. And we have to defend Western civilization. Whoa! Buzzword alert. Defending Western civilization, a noble goal. But a lot of times when people use that terminology, it kind of gets me a little anxious. So one of Palantir's goals was to use techno-militarism to advance the United States' global supremacy. And to do this, they're going to use hard power and targeted violence. So from 2010 to 2012, Thomson Reuters would use Palantir Metropolis. And on June 18th of 2010, Biden would thank Palantir. He says they helped the RATB fight fraud. And they would get about $1 billion worth of contracts from the military and the government, and will limit the data silos of the FBI and the CIA for the first time in history. They would get $450 million from private investors. Now, Eric Karp would not want to go public at this time. He says it doesn't make sense for them to achieve the mission goal. And from 2013 to 2016, they'd grown $20 billion in their value. And they would be considered one of the most overvalued companies in the world. And for 2020, things would take a drastic turn. They would provide aid in fighting COVID during the quarantine. They moved from Silicon Valley to Denver, Colorado. They said the Silicon Valley culture was not conducive to what they were trying to achieve. And the goal was to become the default operating system in government and military agencies. And the FDA would get them $44.4 million in contracts, and the Navy would get them $1 billion in military contracts. The Trump administration provided them with $1.13 million, and the DHS and the Pentagon would provide them with an estimated $775 million. So overall, they were fucking killing it. So honestly, the company's booming, it's flaring up. You're watching Giraffe TV.
Palantir Technologies operations and clients.
Now let's focus on where they got their operations. Who are their clients? What nations are they operating in? So they work with the United States Department of Defense, which is now known as the United States Department of War. Of course, they work with the Recovery, Accountability, and Transparency Board. Of course, they got contracts with the DHS, the NSA, and the FBI, utilized by the Marines, the Air Force, and the Special Operations Command. Now, they aren't the default operating system of the Army, but they still utilize Palantir technology. West Point uses Palantir, along with a joint IED defeat organization. Law enforcement has used them for license plate readers, and they help ICE track legal and illegal immigrants. DOGE asked Palantir to make a master database to help them deport people more efficiently. Palantir is also using Pentagon's Project Maverick. This is a project that uses AI to track drones. They have contracts: Germany, Korea, the United Arab Emirates, Canada, Europol, Denmark, Norway, France, Netherlands, Ukraine, and of course, Israel. They also work with the English National Health Service to much controversy. So the controversial aspect was Palantir analyzing COVID patients' data. There was privacy concern. And it was used in Iran to make sure the nuclear energy program was compliant with the 2015 agreement. They also have a number of corporate clients such as Merck, KJA, Morgan Stanley, Airbus, Regio, Lilium, PG&E, and Fiat Chrysler Automobile. You're watching Giraffe TV.
Palantir Technologies partnerships.
They have a large variety of partnerships, and many of these companies also have ties to Peter Thiel. They have a joint venture with TJW Global, XAI, and Anthropic. They also work with Amazon for US Intel and Defense. They also have ties to Andorra. These fucking nerds, man. They work with SpaceX, of course, OpenAI, and Solana. Who the fuck is that? And Archer Aviation. They're part of the New American Industrial Alliance. This includes that nerdy shit, Anduril, 8VC, General Catalyst, Anderson Horowitz, Hadrian, Oklo Incorporated, Booz Allen, Naira Capital, Joby Aviation, Regent Craft, Atomic Industries, Dirac, and Impulse Space. I don't know any of these names. I don't know who the fuck they are. And I kind of feel like this is all made up, but I guess it's real. They also work with hard tech defense contract. Their goal is to deregulate the government so they can achieve their goals better. Palantir Technologies also works with Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics. They've worked with IBM for cloud data services. You're watching a Giraffe production.
Palantir Technologies corporate affairs.
Now let's talk about the corporate affairs. You know, on second thought, this shit's boring as hell. I had a whole paper written for it. I had everything scripted out and just bored me to tears. Let's go to controversies and conspiracies. This is Giraffe TV.
Palantir technologies, conspiracies, and controversies.
So let's look at some of the conspiracies and some of the controversies that surround Palantir. Of course, one of the major ones is the government surveillance of the public, with the facial recognition, the location tracking, the data mining. All this is a phenomenon that's absolutely undeniable. Now, Palantir says that they don't keep the data on the citizens, they don't keep people's personal information, they just provide the software to government agencies. But Trump has asked him to make a database on all of Americans. Palantir has had access to patient data during the COVID quarantine. It seems like ICE is currently using it to perform the strikes to combat illegal immigration, and in some cases, legal immigration. The United Kingdom will also levy accusations about data mining. So it's not just the United States. In regards to helping out ICE, many human rights organizations said that Palantir has not done their due diligence in protecting human rights. Now, Palantir, of course, denied these claims that they're even really helping ICE, but they have a whole program named Elite that's predominantly used by ICE, and ICE itself said that Palantir's technologies are mission critical. Some say this is also evidence of their AI analytic programs having a racial bias. Palantir Metropolis is used to analyze disgruntled employees' behavior. Now, what if an employee really is just kind of upset at his job? He fully intends to perform his duties, and he's not trying to go post or shoot the place up. But then Metropolis identifies him as a threat, and he's fucking fired. The CIA and the FBI have also had a rocky relationship with Palantir. Eric Clark says this is kind of a non-issue because at this point they have no choice but to use Palantir. Also, after the famous WikiLeaks, Palantir had developed a plan to distribute misinformation on the government to kind of muddy the waters. Now, the employee who suggested this plan was put on suspended leave and put on an investigation, but later he was reinstated. So the same guy is still in the company, and Germany has found Palantir's operations and methods to be directly against the Constitution, so they ended up amending their Constitution so Palantir can do whatever the fuck it wants. Palantir has also faced accusations that they have a bias against Asian applicants, and it got to the point where the Department of Labor levied a lawsuit against them. They did end up settling out of court, and Palantir accepted no wrongdoing. Now, in the second Trump administration, there's at least 10 people who have stock with Palantir, including Stephen Miller. Is this a reason behind the strong push to get numerous government and military organizations to utilize Palantir software? That the Bavarian Minister Hermann supports Palantir. He promotes it and wants it to be a uniform program all across the nation of Germany. Some people have one of the influences behind Palantir's organization, their mission goals. There's Rene Girard, there's Nitsi. Now, Carl Schmitt supported a far-right authoritarian government. Now, there's been a lot of investigative reporters that suggest that Thiel and Karp seek world domination, and they've pushed governments to increase the scope of their power and decrease the civil rights. They try to push a non-democratic ideology.
The world is a dark and uncertain place. Is
Palantir really just an organization that's doing what it takes to combat terrorism in the 21st century? Or is Palantir an organization that plans on absolute world surveillance and complete world domination? Or is Palantir just a group of fucking nerds that never got over themselves?